I've spent 30 years backpacking, and most of that time, I've slept like absolute garbage. Cold, tossing and turning, waking up every couple hours. And the crazy part is, I thought that was just part of backpacking. Until I started changing a couple things. Over the past 5 years, I've been dialing in what I think is the most comfortable sleep system that you can take into the backcountry. Not the lightest, not the cheapest, but the one that actually lets you sleep through the night. And if you stay to the end of the video, I'll show you one piece of gear that completely changed how I stay warm at night, especially my head and my ears, and almost nobody talks about it. So let's build this thing from the ground up. All right, so before we dive into all of this, you can see here that I have a cot. The cot is not a part of the system. Don't take a cot backpacking. This is merely just a foundation for me to build this up on so that I'm not having to lay on the ground to show you all of this. You don't need a cot. But the first thing that I add to my system and that I carry out is a foam pad. Now there's so many different types of these that you have out on the market. This one here that I have is the Nemo switchback pad. This one I really like because of how it is pretty comfortable. Now, I'm not sleeping on this thing by itself. This is not where this video is going. But this thing works amazingly well to pair with what I'm going to show you next. So I lay this thing out. This helps just give a little bit of an insulation layer between me and the ground. Because a lot of places where I camp here in the Colorado mountains gets pretty chilly at night in the 3 seasons of camping. Next, I add an air pad. This here is the Nemo Tensor All Seasons air pad. This one here is the long and the wide. I also have the mummy version if I'm trying to go a little bit lighter and I'm trying to be fast on trail. But if I'm trying to be comfortable, this is the pad that I go with. This thing gives you about 3.5, almost 4 inches off of the ground, and it just makes it so much more comfortable. For me, I'm a side sleeper, and so I like to be able to know that I can sleep on my side and that my hip isn't digging into the ground. And so I love a pad like this. Now, there's all kinds of pads that you can get like this, but to me, this one is the one that I've had and that is kind of the tried and true for me. If I remember right, this one's got an R rating of around 4.8. And so one of the biggest things that you hear me talk about in a lot of my videos is how much the ground can steal your heat whenever you're working in it. And so once I learned that having proper sleep at night was learning how to deal with the system as a whole. It's not just about your sleeping bag or your quilt that you have, but it's about all the different parts to it that we're going to go through as we go here. And then by adding in that foam pad at the bottom below this, not only am I giving a little bit of protection to what can be a sensitive item, you know, these things are pretty easy to puncture at times if you're not careful about what's under your tent. And so adding the foam layer under there helps give some protection to a good portion of this, but then it also adds a little bit of R value and heat protection too as well, because the pad itself has an R value of 2. And then you add that to this one, and then you're going to be able to sleep in pretty cold nights. So if I know I'm going in the middle part of the summer, I may only take the air pad by itself. But a lot of times I will take both. I will take the foam pad and the air pad if I'm really wanting to make sure that I'm comfortable. And as a part of that, one of the other things that I take too as well is an air pump. So this helps me be able to inflate this when I'm hiking all day out on the trail and I'm super exhausted and I don't want to sit there and blow up the air pad, just constantly wear myself out, I can take this little bitty pump that only weighs a few ounces and use it to actually blow up this pad while I'm working to do some other things too as well. And the other cool thing about these pumps, now this is an older version, they make another version too that's even lighter than this, and they even make some pumps nowadays too that don't even have their own internal batteries like this one does, that you have to plug into a battery bank that make them even lighter for this. But this one also has got a light in it and a couple other things that you can do too as well. But I love this thing to be able to pair with blowing up my air pad, because it also keeps me from putting the moisture in my breath into that air pad, which would affect how warm it stays at night. And so if I can keep that moisture out of the pad, that will help it stay even warmer when I'm sleeping at night. Now, this next piece of gear I'm going to show you is actually where it takes this system from feeling a little bit less like camping, and it actually starts to feel a lot more like a bed at home. So this is something I came across a couple years ago, and this is a sheet that I use to put on the air mat. It just slips over the corners to be able to secure it onto the pad. And then it's got clips on it that will clip it on the pad so that it clips around and stays secure. So this particular sheet is made by ZenBivy. So they make a whole system where all of the different things interlock together. But I don't use all of the other ZenBivy type things, but I love their sheets. And they make a full sheet too that'll cover the whole thing. But I realized when I was out that, when you're laying on an air pad sometimes, at night, and if you get warm, or if you're in it's a hotter night or something like that, I would get sticky, and I just hated laying directly on the air pad. And so having a little bit of a sheet on the air pad really, really helps me sleep a lot more comfortable at night. But I found if I tried to take a sheet from home, there would just be so much extra weight that would be adding to it. And so these things, they make them where you can either get a full one, or this one is their half sheet. So it only covers the top half, which to me, I feel like is the most important portions whenever I'm sleeping. But as you can see here in the wind, it also has this little hood here that works really well to be able to anchor your pillow to and keep your pillow kind of in place. And there's even some loops in this one here that I actually take and I will tie my pillow to later on, you'll see, that helps keep it in place so that nothing moves around whenever you're going. And if you actually use the ZenBivy systems, it's also got some hooks on it here that clips in to their system too as well. All right, the next thing I add to this is some form of blanket. So I used to sleep for the longest time with a traditional sleeping bag, and I would always use the mummy sleeping bags. But I hated so much about, I toss and turn at night. I start on my side, and then I move to my back, and then I move around, and then eventually my dog Moose tries to get in the bed with me sometimes. And I just am always moving around, and I just always hated how confined I felt in a sleeping bag. And so I actually swapped over a few years ago to a quilt. And so you can see here, these things are a lot lighter than a sleeping bag because they don't have everything that a sleeping bag has. The whole back is open on this. And so you take these but they have pad straps and that you take and you put on your sleeping bag. And so the challenge with a quilt sometimes, and I say in a lot of my videos, they may not always be as beginner friendly for a lot of people because it takes a little bit to get to know how to use these. But the thing that I really like about a quilt is the flexibility that it has in my sleep system. So if I'm going out and it's not that cold of a night, I may not even clip this thing into the pad at all. I may just throw it on me like a blanket so that I have that ability to stick a leg out if I want to, or if I want to pull it off of me for a while and be able to pull it back on me later on. I have that flexibility for that in this system. I can move around in it, I can flip, I can turn around and do all kinds of things. But also, whenever it starts to really get cold, I have the ability to now control that a little better. So you can take and clip in this quilt to your sleeping pad in order to be able to control some of those drafts that you might get in if you didn't have it open. And so now it clips in and takes care of a lot of those cold spots that might be coming in too, that you have there. And I have a little bit more room to move in the pad to where now if I want to turn on my side, put my knee out to the side, or if I want to just move around, it's a lot more comfortable for me to adjust in if I want to when I'm out there. The other thing that I like in these quilts is that at the top, so now I've got it all clipped in here, and so it's going to stay in place a lot better when I'm there. But if it's really chilly out, they have this button here at the top too, where I can button this up right around my neck to be able to get that thing to stay in place so that it's not coming off of me and I'm not getting any cold drafts there at night. And then they even have a cinch cord here that you can use to really cinch it down around if you're really wanting to keep all the heat into your bag. Similar to what you would probably do with a mummy bag. And then too, they've even thought about it and built in some little straps here to help you make sure that that cinch cord that you do can be pulled over out of the way so it's off to the side and not in your face at night. So another thing while we're talking about blankets that sometimes I will pair with it too as well. And so if you're one of those type of people that maybe you're new to using a quilt, you haven't really figured out how to put those straps exactly in the right place and keep some of those drafts out, and you just don't like drafts or you're worried about being cold, is I will add in sometimes a sleeping bag liner. And so this here will just give you one extra added layer in there. And so if you're using this, you might not need, say, the sheet necessarily on the pad for that either. But this will also add some added warmth too as well. This one here is the Cedar Summit, and it's just a fabric liner. You can also get some really lightweight silk ones as well that don't add a lot of weight to it either. But this thing not only adds another layer of comfort, but it potentially adds another layer of warmth. They say these things can add anywhere from 10 to 15 degrees to your pads or to your sleeping bag, but I've never really tested that, so I don't know if that's true or not. And so I don't always necessarily carry this with me on every trip that I go, but on trips where if I'm worried that I might, it might be a little colder, or there's a chance that it could be a little colder than normal, and I'm just worried about wanting to stay super extra comfortable, then I will take this out with me. Because as you can see, it packs down pretty small. So it's not a whole lot of extra weight to add into your system. So that leads me into my next thing. Now, this is a big controversy that you find on the web, and that's a pillow. Some people will say you don't need to take a pillow. Others will say they take 2, maybe 3 pillows. I've gone through all those stages throughout my 30 years of backpacking. I went from in the beginning thinking, oh, I'm going to be super ultra light, and I'm just going to stuff clothes in a stuff sack and be able to do that. Or then I went to a period where I hated that, and then I was taking 2 or even 3 pillows at times and a whole lot of extra weight because I knew I wanted a pillow, to where I eventually worked through a whole bunch of systems and I dialed in what I think is the most comfortable but also the most lightweight system that I've come across. And that is pairing with, so this here is the Big Sky International air pillow. This is the lightest weight air pillow that I've ever come across, but it's also pretty decent in size. So I wanted something that was big enough to give me, I'm a side sleeper, so I like a bigger pillow, but I also hated standard air pillows. And so this one, the things that I like about this one is, one, it's super lightweight and super small, but it also has got some little tie straps, and it comes with a cord where I can tie this to the actual system. You can tie it to your air pad. For me, I tie it to the sheet in that pillow compartment that I told you about on the sheet, and that just keeps it from moving around at night, so I don't have to worry about it coming off. But I didn't always just like air pillows, because I don't like, they're cold when you're laying on it. When it gets cold at night, the air in there gets cold. I don't like laying directly on the plastic. And so I used to pair this with a second pillow. But nowadays, one of my actual viewers on my channel gave me a great idea that I started working on and trying, 4 or 5 months ago. And I love it. And it has been my go-to solution from here on out. And that's where I take my buff. And so my buff is an item that I take with me all the time. You guys have seen any of my videos, I love multi-use items. And the buff is one of probably the most versatile multi-use items that you can have in backpacking. It can do so many things. But one of the things that I absolutely use this for all the time is to use it as a pillowcase. And so you can take this thing and slip it over this air pillow, and now you've taken away that uncomfortableness that you have with being able to lay directly on an air pillow. But then I add one more thing to it that makes it even better, and that's I take one of my fleeces that I'm normally hiking with. This is one of my alpha fleeces, which a lot of times I will probably hike in with, because it's super lightweight, it's super small, but it's something I'm already carrying. But then normally once I get to camp, I normally swap out and put on a puffy or something to stay warm if it's chillier at night. And so then at night when I go to bed, I'm not wearing all these things anyway. So if I've got it, I might as well use it for something else. And so you can take this fleece and then stuff it in to that buff and put it in between the buff now and the pillow. And you can adjust it to however you want. If you want the whole, to get super thick, you can put the whole thing in there. If you just want a small layer, you can just put half of it in there and leave the other half laying out. But what this does now is not only does it add a little bit of cushion and comfort to the pillow, but it also adds an added layer of warmth now. So even though, yes, that air pillow is still going to get a little chilly at night, now I've got a fleece topping on top of that that's going to help me do that. There are so many pillows that they sell out there that does exactly this, that you will pay 5 times what I have in this setup to be able to get that same comfort levels. And so then I take this pillow and I take it and put it, like I said, here in this little thing on the sheet. And like I said, there's some little loops in here. And so I will slip this cordage through the loops. There's 2 of them here. And then I come back to the other side here and go through the other hole and then tie it off. And so now this thing is going to stay put all night long. And then I also even have an extra added layer over that. All right. So now here's that one thing I told you in the beginning that's game changer for me. So of course, whenever I first started figuring out my systems, right? And like I said, if you sleep in a sleeping bag or you're used to a mummy bag, you're used to being able to pull that mummy bag over your ears, get yourself good and warm, keep your ears, keep your head warm at night. But once I changed over to the quilt, I no longer had that available to me. And so I kept having all these issues with my ears getting cold at night or my head getting cold, and you lose so much heat from your head. And so I was trying so many different things to try to solve that problem. I would wear my stocking cap at night and try to have that on. But then, because I toss and I turn and I move around, that thing would come off and I'd wake up and my ears would be cold and it would be on the ground, or I'd have to go searching for it because maybe it was in my sleeping bag or in my sleeping quilt and I just couldn't find it. And so it was so much irritation. I even would take my buff and try to put my buff on, which would stay on my head a lot better, but then it was thinner. And so if it got cold enough, then my ears still got cold. And my trip gets completely ruined if my ears get cold. And so then I came across this. And this little thing weighs next to nothing. It's so lightweight that even if I take it out and it doesn't get as cold as I thought it was going to get, I don't feel bad about taking it. But this is a down balaclava. And this particular one is from Outdoor Vitals. But I love this thing. And not only did this thing solve all of my problems with keeping my head and keeping my ears warm at night, but it did something that I wasn't even expecting it to do, that I didn't find out until I started using it. So as far as warmth, this thing just slips over your head and you can put it on just like this. And if it's really, really cold at night, just like you could do with those down sleeping bags, I can even cinch this thing up and have it cover as much of me as I want it to keep as much heat in as I can. Or even cover my eyes if I want to be able to knock out some of the daylight. If you're, in the middle of the summer and it's cold in the top of the mountains, you're 10, 12,000 foot up in the mountains and it's still daylight and you're trying to go to sleep, you can even use that to cover that off. So I'd never even thought about being able to use it for an eye mask. But then too, I noticed after I started using it some, that one of the other things that it does is, because now it's covering so much of your face, is it blocks out so much of the noise around you. And so if you're one of those type of people that you're a super light sleeper or you're new to backpacking, and so the nighttime noises really distract you or cause you to, to be worried or anxious about things, this muffles out so much of those. Or even worst case scenario, you got a friend that you're backpacking with that snores. Like, I found that this thing just dampens out the noise just enough to make you feel comfortable and to be able to just settle in to all of this sleep system here and just get the best night of sleep that you could ever get. And it makes you look super cool. I mean, like, come on. So this is my entire sleep system. Paired together, each one of these things plays a different part in helping me have the most amazingly warm and comfortable night anywhere I go out in the backcountry. Now, I already know what's going to happen down in the comments. Some of you guys are going to say, hey, you should try this pad, or you should try this quilt, or even, you're doing it all wrong. And you know what? I want you guys to say that. I want you to tell me, what are you using? What works for you? Do you have something in your sleep system that you use that you think works better than one of the items that I have in mine? Because I am always looking at new gear. I'm always testing new things. I've spent 30 years getting to this setup. And so I'm always trying to dial that in and use other things. And so I want to know, what are you guys using? What do you like that keeps you having the most amazing night when you're out on the backcountry? And if you're still struggling with sleeping cold at night, then check out this video right here. I did some of these things so wrong for so long until I finally figured out how to stay warm. And if you're brand new to backpacking and you're still trying to figure out all the different gear that you need to take out on the trail, then I put together a free 29-page beginner backpacking kit that I'll make sure to give the links down in the descriptions below. As always, guys, I really hope this was helpful for you. I hope that this can help you find that most amazing sleep that you can have, and it helps you figure out how you're going to dial in your system. And as always, guys, I hope I see you out on the trail.